Good evening. Okay. Infrastructure financing. Okay. So there we have discussed something like a kind of recollection to reach $5 trillion. Okay. We have talked about something like private investment, isn't it? And for the private player to make investment, government has to spend money on infrastructure. And this is clearly visible even in the budget. Okay. So how much is government spending on capital expenditure? No. 10 lakh crore. Right. 10 lakh crore capital expenditure in the budget. I'm talking about budget, the recent one. Okay. So is that clear? Okay. That 11th 5-year plan, 45% that you are able to recollect. So in the budget we said no, 4 times it has increased. No, from 2016 it was 2.5 lakh crore to 10 lakh crore. Right. Fine. So that is clearly visible that government is spending 10 lakh crore in the budget. That is capital expenditure. That is clearly visible in the budget as well. So in the budget, there is a specific focus clearly visible with respect to this aspect called as infrastructure. I hope it is clear. Okay. And then the recent policies also, I've discussed, I believe I've discussed National Infrastructure Pipeline. नहीं क्या था हेडिंग नहीं वो पीपीटी बताया था ना हाँ ठीक है ओके Okay, we'll see. Okay. So here, therefore, this is clearly visible if you observe government in the recent past. One is National Infrastructure Pipeline. Okay. So 111 lakh crores. 111 lakh crore with 9,000 projects. Okay. These projects will be both brownfield plus greenfield. Is that okay? Yes. And then National Monetization Pipeline. I'll make you write later. Okay, National Monetization Pipeline. Did I discuss what is how monetization happens? Yes? Okay. So in this 111 lakh crore, government said we will raise around 6 lakh crore through monetization. Okay. And these two are not sufficient. Then they said, if this NIP has to be integrated with PM Gati Shakti. PM Gati Shakti, I said it's a program related to good governance. So ministries and departments, please talk to each other and therefore you will not waste public money. Remember? Okay, so without coordination, if you implement something, you're doing the same work again and again. Okay, so that is PM Gati Shakti. And most importantly, all these will not be successful unless and until you have a proper logistics. That is what is National Logistics Policy. See, we should understand logistics means what? Logistics deals with everything from procurement of raw material till the final mile delivery or the last mile delivery. Whatever activities including packaging, okay, including transportation, or even with respect to order processing, everything that happens in between the raw material procurement to the final mile delivery, all this is part of logistics. And national logistics policy across the globe, global average is logistic cost, global average logistic cost is something like 8% of GDP. Global average. Okay. India's logistics cost is almost like 14 to 18% of GDP. Logistic cost, which is not good. Not good. That means your logistic cost is almost like 18% of GDP. But other countries, if you see, they are very efficient in their logistics, means your product is going to become costly and inefficient. So nobody is going to buy our product, as simple as that. Okay, so now that is the reason national logistics policy kept a target. What is the target of the logistics policy? By 2030. By 2030, we have to reduce our logistics cost to 8% of GDP. Are you able to get this? So unless and until all these are done effectively, okay, you cannot be efficient with respect to infrastructure. You can't be efficient with respect to infrastructure. All these, logistics, good governance, PM Gati Shakti, monetization, infrastructure pipeline. So infrastructure pipeline is basically between 20 to 25. Year 20 to 25, they said we are going to focus in spending so much, and this will be crucial for achieving a $5 trillion target. It will be crucial for achieving. So always in the exam, when I am writing something related to, suppose there's a question says, what are the measures taken by the government? Then obviously you will write from the current and go to the past. That means you will start from the current budget, then you will talk about national infrastructure pipeline, then monetization, logistics, PM Gati Shakti, and then you will talk about the previous points. Always write the current points first, what government is doing now, and then slowly you will go to the what government has done earlier. I think it is clear. Okay. Now moving forward, as online students are mentioning, what were the challenges? What are the main challenges in infrastructure financing? So main challenges in infrastructure financing, I made you write? No, I did not dictate. Okay. So main challenges in infrastructure financing, one is basically government has a lot of fiscal burden. So government cannot spend money on infrastructure from its pocket alone. So government cannot do that because already there are a lot of other things the government has to do. So this is one big challenge. Second big challenge is, I've used this word earlier also, I said the challenge is with respect to asset liability mismatch. Asset liability mismatch. This is mainly for whom? Banks. Because infrastructure projects have longer gestation periods. Infrastructure loans also, the banks have to give for longer period, 15 years, 20 years. It is going to be difficult. Is that okay? That is also a problem. Then regulatory mechanism challenges. You have a challenge of regulatory mechanism for insurance companies, insurance and pension fund companies. For insurance and pension fund companies, the challenge is mainly with respect to regulatory mechanism. Mainly with respect to, that is, you have to abide by the guidelines of the regulatory bodies like IRDA. So IRDA says don't put your money into new infrastructure projects. Then automatically the infrastructure companies cannot push their money into infrastructure projects. Okay, so but infrastructure companies are better placed. Okay, so insurance companies are better placed than banks. Okay, why they are better placed? Because these are long term. When I put money into an insurance company or a pension fund company, the money will stay there for a longer period. So they can reinvest that money into infrastructure easily. It's all about reinvestment. You're collecting money from some sources, you are investing it into infrastructure. So better than bank, they can do it because they don't have this problem of asset liability mismatch. But their problem is with the regulation. I think it is clear. Okay. And then I would have also mentioned in India, the problem is even there with respect to the development of this market called as the bond market. This bond market in India is still not developed. It is in the beginning stage, nascent stage. So whether it is corporate bond or the municipal bond, both corporate bond as well as the municipal bond market. So this is the problem, and therefore dependence on banks is high in India. So companies cannot raise money through bonds, and therefore they have to depend on banks. Okay, so this is another aspect. And then even this route called ECB, external commercial borrowing. So this is a route. So this route also has weakened after subprime crisis after 2008 and 9. So depending on ECB route also has started becoming difficult. Okay. So then the regular problems are anyhow there. What are the regular problems? One problem is with respect to land acquisition. This is a big issue for infrastructure projects. Okay. Or you have administrative issues. So this is a common problem. Land acquisition, administrative issues, etc. So infrastructure, long-term periods, obviously it becomes a challenge. And then there is also problem of stalling of projects. Stalling of projects means, so according to statistics of 2015-16, okay, so the stalling means suddenly you stop the project. So 15 years period, suddenly after 7 years, 6 years, you stop the project. So the stalling of projects was accounting to almost like 8% of GDP, 7 to 8% of GDP. So stalling of projects is also a challenge. It creates problems. Okay, so you stop the project suddenly for no reason. For no reason is some reason you state. But there are companies which have already put money into it, etc. Okay, so all these are challenges or issues which we have discussed, isn't it? So to find out a solution, for these problems and several other problems, one is government started encouraging public-private partnerships. So one solution is PPP. This we have to discuss in detail later. We will talk about it in detail. Public-private partnership. Okay, so one solution for infrastructure projects was PPP. So what is the benefit of a public-private partnership? So one is sharing of risk and sharing of revenues. Okay. So there is no more scope for new capital. No, there is scope for new capital and also technology, etc. World-class infrastructure today, if you find, so all this world-class infrastructure is because of private participation. That is the benefit of public-private partnerships. Problems are also there. We'll get into it later. Then we have used a word called viability gap funding. Mentioned it? Yes. So viability gap funding is, this is mainly for PPP projects only. PPP projects. For PPP projects, government came up with viability gap funding mechanism in 2006, where government said for economic projects, we will straight away fund up to 40% of the project cost. Okay, 40% of the project cost will come from government's pocket. So 20% straight away it will come from the ministry, government, and another 20% a sponsoring authority will put, but overall 40. So here I have mentioned 40%, up to 40%. But there are some social projects also. Okay, so when I use the word social project, that means returns are difficult. For example, let's say government hospitals, returns, okay, suddenly the cost is increasing, you can't push it on the patient, and you can't say the poor patient you pay. That's not possible. No? So therefore, for social projects, up to 80% also it goes, up to 80%. For social projects, up to 80. Up to 80 is not compulsorily 80. It is up to 80%. There are certain social projects where returns become very difficult. Even recovering the operations cost becomes difficult. You know what is operations cost? That day functioning, suppose operation cost for 1 day functioning of a particular project is 1 lakh rupees. Recovering that operations cost itself becomes difficult, mainly with respect to social projects. So there government can also push money up to 80%. This is what the economic survey budget talks about recently. Up to 80% of the project cost can be funded through viability gap funding. So that is only for social projects. That's not for all the projects. That should be clear. Is that clear then? Okay. Next is, then I have used a word, infrastructure debt fund companies. Did you? Yes. So infrastructure debt fund companies. Okay. On similar lines, there are some trusts called investment trusts. You call it as InvITs. Recently, they've asked a question also, something related to this. Okay. So investment trusts. Okay. So now the approach is almost same, little different. So this investment trust logic is also based on monetization only. Monetization. So how does monetization work? What happens in monetization? Existing asset is there. So government gives this existing asset to the private player, whether it may be port, airport, whatever it is, and government is going to get some money from it, and it uses this money for other greenfield projects. That means government is using its brownfield projects to raise money, and that money will be used for new greenfield projects. On similar lines, investment trusts work. Similar lines. Investment trusts also will work in similar lines. So simple example, just a basic example. For example, if there is this National Highway Authority of India, let's say, it is interested in building highways, government authority. Okay. Now, this investment trust has been established, okay, mainly with respect to a highway. And this road has been constructed. Once the road is constructed, there is a source of revenue. What is the source of revenue? One source of revenue is what? Tolls. So more people are using, more collection comes from the road. Okay. Now, this investment trust is mainly handling this particular national highway road. And this is already an existing project. This project is already completed now. Okay. So it is functional. It is functional means now it is able to raise money. Okay. Now I have money in hand. Companies have money in hand. So either I can buy some bonds, I can put it in the bank, or I can buy some shares. Or you can also invest your money into real estate investment trusts, or you can invest into investment trusts. Okay, so what is the logic? Why do you invest? You invest because you receive some interest, or you should receive some dividend. And the money which I receive should be definitely more than the bank interest. Obviously, no? So when I'm putting money somewhere, suppose your friend is asking for a loan, what you will say? Okay, take, but at least see to that you give me bank interest. Then the friend may say, if it is bank interest, I'll take it from bank only, no? Then you're not my friend. You do something. No, this kind of discussions happen. So here, whenever they are selling some financial product also, the first thing is, at least will I get the bank interest. So here, obviously, the dividend you get should be higher than the bank interest, or the interest which you get should be higher than the bank interest. Suppose I have 10,000 rupees, I want to invest into share market. Now instead of putting into share market, now they say put it into investment trust. So I decide let's put this 10,000 rupees into share investment trust. Now they said because of this 10,000 rupees which you invested, we will give you 5 units. We will allot you some units. Like the share, we are giving you 5 units. So since you are holding some units, you will be given some dividend or return on the units which you are holding. Now these returns which are given to you should be collected from the existing asset. From this existing asset, there should be some collections that happen, and from these collections you are going to make payments. Like that, investors decide to invest into these trusts. Okay. Now this money which this investment trust is raising, okay, you handle this highway, but National Highway Authority of India, what it will say is, I will use this money. Let's say they have raised some 2,000 crores. So that 2,000 crores, we will use it for another greenfield project. We will use it for another new project, greenfield project. You're raising money. Why are they raising money? Because this is functional. So there are two things here. One is you'll always keep the road functional. You'll also maintain the road, not just the service delivery. If this road becomes useless, okay, nobody is using the road, returns will not come. Are you able to get this? So better that the road is functional. So road is maintained well. So therefore this road, the service, along with the service delivery, maintenance aspect comes into picture. Because you are linking it to these kind of entities, maintenance also should be done, and you should also check every now and then whether the toll collections are appropriate or not. Because if the toll collections are not appropriate, then investors will question. Are you able to get this? So automatically you will try to maintain this. And this money which you are raising, let's say 2,000 crores you have raised, 10,000 crores have been raised by government through this investment trust, according to the budget. And that money, government decided we will use it for new projects. So what did the government do indirectly? So government indirectly was able to use its existing asset. Now National Highway Authority of India using this money to build a new road. Okay, so you're using your old road, which is functional, to build a new road. It is something like monetization. Are you able to understand? Okay, like the IDFC, earlier it is IDFCs, infrastructure debt fund companies. Now these are investment trusts. Okay, so here also, if somebody would have read this, they could have answered this question also. So the question something like they've asked, this dividends or interest which they are paying, will it be taxed or not? Okay, so this was something like the question. If infrastructure debt fund companies, if you have read, because government reduced the taxes on these investors who invest in infrastructure debt fund companies earlier. Okay, they reduced the taxes, so that means there is some aspect of tax, etc., which is levied on the money you receive. Is that okay? Fine. So now infrastructure debt fund company, how does this operate? This is clear, right? So monetization is clear. Okay, so infrastructure debt fund company basically operates this way. Since LIC alone cannot fund, okay, or maybe Bank of Baroda alone cannot fund, these group of companies, they come up and they start a new company. Let's say one infrastructure debt fund company has been set up. It's a company, separate legal entity. Now the main role of this company is to fund infrastructure. Let's say it is funding L&T's metro project. L&T metro project in Chennai, let's say. So now this is basically IDFC infrastructure, this debt fund company is funding a metro project. Okay. Now this company as a legal entity, it can raise money from different sources. It can raise money, it will mainly raise money from insurance companies. It will raise money from pension fund companies. It can raise money from foreign insurance companies, foreign pension fund companies. Why insurance and pension fund companies you are raising money? Because long term. These insurance companies can put the money here, which will be invested into this project, and they will be getting some interest or returns. Since money is there for a long term period, no, you can't keep it idle, they're investing it somewhere. So invest here, we will invest it into this metro rail project. This company will pay some interest, from there we will also give you some returns. This is how it runs. Is that okay? Now, that is the reason this IDFC company will raise money for a long-term period. That is the reason you mainly focus on insurance or pension fund companies to invest. And it can also be from the foreign player or the Indian players as well. Now, when you are paying some interest to them, you are paying interest, you are receiving money, you are paying some interest. At the source, there was a tax that was deducted, which is called as the withholding tax. So that means there is an aspect of tax. There is some aspect of tax on the dividend. Okay. Now earlier in the fiscal policy class, I have used the word like dividend distribution tax. And I said this tax has been removed in 2020. And I also mentioned it's a direct tax paid by the company while it is distributing dividends. Discussed? Okay. So this is not that. This is completely a different thing. There, when the company is distributing dividends to the investors, that time it is deducting. Here, for the investments they made, they are getting those returns. There at that source, you are deducting something called as a withholding tax. Earlier, this withholding tax was 20%, and later on, government said we will reduce it to 5. Is that okay? 100 rupees is given. They are only deducting 5 rupees and giving 95 rupees to the company, so that these investors will invest more into these companies. So government said, RBI and SEBI guidelines came up. They said you can come up with these companies as a mutual fund institution. you can come up with these companies as a mutual fund institution, or you can also come up with these companies as an NBFC. I'll talk about it after 2 minutes. So you can set up this company, heard of this word mutual fund? Okay, so out of mutual funds and pure shares, which is more risky? Which is more risky? Why? So here if you see, one is bonds. Bonds everybody knows, debt instruments. Okay, shares, mutual funds. Did I discuss the difference earlier? So I'll just ask you, tell me, what is the basic difference? You would have heard of the word mutual fund earlier also. You read somewhere also, or yeah, so. Invested also. Advertisement. Invested also means okay. Mutual funds are not doing well, waste. Okay, so, but now why mutual, see, now share market, first thing in share market, risk is high or low? High. Don't say risk is low. Okay, so last month one student is in the trade service. Trade service is also UPSC only. So he said, I am resigning. Then asked, next question is obviously why? No, I have to take care of my parents is the answer he gave. Then obviously my next question is, what will you do along with taking care of parents? You're resigning the job, you have to do something. No? Okay, so then he said, share market kar lenge. Share. So he's so confident in share market. Then I asked, do you have experience? No, we will learn. Then I asked him, you have money? No, we will arrange it. So like this he was giving all answers which are not at all satisfying. So generally sometimes you ask questions, you ask questions so that you want a yes from the other person. So you want yes, no, sir should say yes. If I say yes, my decision is right. Okay, so I said, don't do all those useless things. So come and take care of your parents, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, go back to work. I said, I will practice. Actually, share market statistics shows very few are successful here. Very few, it's only less than 0.5, far worse than UPSC. Far worse than UP. UP is far better. Basically, the people who made money here is very limited, you don't know. We know because we have taken personal loans and played here. Personal loan, paying 14% interest. So we were so confident. After your management, you feel, kya kaam karenge? Chalo, chodo. 40 personal loan, chalo, like 18 lakhs, you take 18 lakhs, chalo, dalte options, and you not do regular trading options, and you want immediate 300, 200% return. And so there were cases where we lost all the 18 lakhs also. And again, you have to pay interest for that. It's pay interest, that means you have so much of, then you understood, then you say, oh no, what did Warren Buffett do? Chalo, start reading the basic books, what Warren Buffett did. But just by reading big books, you'll not become a share market geek or something. No. So you have to burn your hands. And government officers cannot burn because they are habituated to security. This is what I was telling that student. No, the end of the month you get salary. You're such a kind of person when there's no stress. No, when money is coming into your pocket. Now suddenly that salary is not coming. Then you will know what is stress. So basically, share market in India, it involves risk. Somebody says we'll master it, it takes over a period of time. And if you have a lot of money, idle cash, then you can try. But otherwise, it's a learning process. No, you have to invest, lose some money, then learn, again invest like that. That means always risk is high and automatically returns are also a little high only. Risk and returns are on a higher side, both. Okay, same with life also. Risk, return go hand in hand. So generally, somebody comes up in the 4th attempt and 5th attempt says, my whole life is over. Why? I failed. Okay. I've taken this risk. You know, there are consequences, no? Consequences of what? What is the meaning of risk? Risk is it can turn up good or it can turn up wrong also, right? And when it comes to share market, what about financial knowledge? Do you need financial knowledge? Yes, to some extent at least. You should know what is a balance sheet. You should at least read the balance sheet of the company and find out this fellow is okay, not okay. You don't know what it is and somebody told you are investing means risky. So financial knowledge is also required. If you buy shares, you receive what? Dividends. Okay, dividends. Okay, and you don't have any fund manager, no fund manager who's going to be there. You have to invest, you have to. Okay, so sell, buy, whatever it is, based on your judgments. Actually, those who are reading newspapers, you get ideas, no, this share is doing well, this share is not doing well. You will be able to do it a little. Now, here in the mutual fund basically, what happens in a mutual fund? So, you will have a fund manager, first of all. And this fund manager, they will prepare a portfolio. First thing they will do is portfolio preparation. What is the meaning of portfolio? You have different sectors. Let's say there is one mutual fund which is called as Reliance Capital. Okay, this is a mutual fund. In this, you have different sectors. You have different companies from different sectors. One company is from IT, another is from energy sector, another is from insurance, banking, manufacturing. You have different companies from different sectors. So there is diversification. Diversification will reduce risk. Tomorrow IT companies fall or IT market is not doing well. If I'm buying TCS shares, I'm gone. Satyam, I burned my hands. Okay, there was a company, if you know, there was an auditing fraud. Okay, so not only you lost, you also invested others' money. Okay, you invested others' money and suddenly there is a fraud and Satyam share went down to 11 rupees 50 paisa. Okay, that means it's gone. Okay, so like this, the risk is high. But here, at least, if IT falls, there may be some diversification. Money is invested into different blocks. Okay, and the whole class, let's say, all of us are investing into one mutual fund. So, group of people are investing, and into a group of companies, isn't it? Money is going into different. So, diversification will always reduce risk. You're not putting all eggs in one basket. So, this is what mutual fund does. And at the same time, some salesperson comes to you and says, no, we will give you 20% return. So somebody is saying 20% return means the money is going into share market. Nobody can give you 20% return unless and until the money goes into share market. If it goes into bond market, he will only promise you 8.5, 9%. He can't give you more than that. So 20% means there is a risk associated, money is going into share market. That is the reason you will find mutual funds are subject to market risk. At the end he will say. So if you lose money, don't ask. So this is what is mutual fund. So suppose there is a mutual fund company. This IDFC can be set up as a mutual fund company and you raise money from different sources. Then this company will be regulated by SEBI, Security Exchange Board of India. You raise money to invest into infrastructure. Or you can set it up as a non-banking financial company. This IDFC company can be set up as an NBFC, non-banking financial company, which will be regulated by RBI. This will be handled by RBI. If you are setting it as a mutual fund entity, this will be regulated by SEBI, Security Exchange Board of India. That is what they say. So IDFC companies can be set up as an NBFC. Now, heard of this word NBFC? Non-banking financial companies. Now, for example, Bajaj Finance is there. So it is not a pure bank. Okay, so Muthoot Finance, it's not a pure bank, right? So you have all these are NBFCs, non-banking financial entities. What is the basic difference? Is there any difference between bank and an NBFC? What is the difference? Anybody? What is the difference between bank and NBFC? Anyhow, I will discuss this in banking class in detail, but any differences there or it is same? See, both NBFC gives loans, banks also give loans. You can take loans from Bajaj Finance, yes, you can take loans from Bajaj Finance. Okay, you can take loans from bank also. But when it comes to deposits, banks, you can put money into banks, both the type of deposits. One is you have the demand deposits. This is your first class today or second class? Okay. And still some are meditating. Okay. Okay. Infrastructure. Infrastructure means meditation. Next class, next topic will be national income. There is no scope for meditation. You meditate, you will not understand. Okay, here it is more English, no. So therefore you will go to Himalayas, come back. Demand deposits plus term deposit, banks. Okay. In NBFC, you have again, there are NBFCs which accept deposits, which are called as NBFC-D. NBFC-D means deposit taking NBFC. Okay. Similarly, there are some NBFCs which do not accept deposits. They are called as non-deposit taking NBFC. So NBFCs can also be classified into those NBFCs which accept deposits, those NBFCs which do not accept deposits. Is that okay? And these deposit taking NBFCs also, they only take term deposits, no demand deposits. No demand deposits. You know what is demand deposit, term deposit, NDTL, you know, right? So only term deposits, no demand deposits. Is that clear? Okay. And banks maintain what? CRR. Heard of this word? They maintain SLR. They need not maintain. NBFCs need not maintain CRR and SLR. They maintain something else, but they do not maintain specifically CRR and SLR. This is some basic understanding or a basic difference between NBFC and a bank. Is that clear? And mutual fund institutions, see, in mutual fund, the basic problem with a mutual fund is you cannot sell it to others in the secondary market. You purchased a mutual fund. You can't sell it to me in the stock market. You want your money back, you go to the company, get your money. Are you able to get this? Get your money. You can't sell it to somebody else. Okay, so that means there is no secondary market. You know, primary market, basics class, secondary market. Secondary market in the stock market, you are selling it to somebody. You can't do that. You can't sell it to somebody. You have to go back to the company to get your money in the mutual fund. But share market, you can sell it to somebody else, no? Okay, so that is the reason you have ETFs and all, exchange trade funds. We'll talk about it later. Okay, so but the word, since mutual fund is coming, I've just explained what it is. Is that clear? Somebody was asking the other day, there was one question on share market they've asked. So which we generally use that word when you're doing the trading and all. So I'm not able to recollect the word also. They've asked. Then what to do with that question? Somebody was asking. What to do with such questions? What to do with such questions? Leave it. Leave it. See here, we are not going to answer every question. So there will be such questions. Today you may prepare that. And you decide, let me read the terminology of share market completely. You decide and you read all the terminology of share market. Tomorrow you will not ask. Okay, so here there are easy questions. Do easy questions. Some question comes up out of the way. Not required. Easy questions from all the areas if we do, job is done. Understood? No. So you whole share market now that what should I read in finance? No, nothing you have to read. Okay, so what is the last thing you have written? Different types of infrastructure. Okay, so that is done. So put the heading infrastructure financing. Okay, infrastructure financing, right down. It is a challenge in India. Infrastructure financing, right down. It is a challenge in India. According to 11th 5-year plan, approximately 45% of the total infrastructure funding, 45% of the total infrastructure funding is coming from government's budget, and 55% is managed through debt and equity sources. Banks play an instrumental role. in infrastructure financing. Okay, infrastructure financing. Next, put the heading challenges. Challenges in infrastructure financing. First one, fiscal burden of the government. Fiscal burden of the government. Okay. 2, asset liability mismatch for the banks. Asset liability mismatch for the banks. Okay, mismatch for the banks. Next one, bond market is still not developed in India. Bond market is still not developed in India. Our bond market is in nascent stage, beginning stage, okay? Still not developed in India. In bracket, write corporate bond market, comma, corporate bond market, comma, municipal bond market. Okay. Next point. Investment obligation on insurance and pension fund companies. Investment obligation on insurance and pension fund companies. Investment obligation on insurance and pension fund companies. Next point, increase in funding gaps. Increase in funding gaps, especially after 2008, especially after 2008 subprime crisis. Especially after 2008 subprime crisis. Is that okay? In bracket, just mention ECB route has weakened. ECB route got affected. Just mention ECB route got affected. ECB route got affected after 2008. ECB route. ECB part of current account or capital account? Capital account. ECB route has got affected. Okay. Next point, legal and procedural issues. Legal and procedural issues, including land acquisition, and administration. Okay. Then put the heading measures taken by government. Measures taken by government. First point mention, write down first point. PPP projects in infrastructure. PPP projects in infrastructure. Write down. Under which write down, government faces tight budgetary constraints. Government faces tight budgetary constraints. Tight budgetary constraints in the rule-based fiscal policy. In the rule-based fiscal policy framework. Rule-based fiscal policy framework. It was important to encourage the private sector. It was important to encourage the private sector. Important to encourage the private sector to invest in infrastructure. To invest in infrastructure. Okay. 2, write down. Second point, viability gap funding. Viability gap funding. It was introduced in 2006. It was introduced in 2006. Where the central government provides 20%. Where the central government provides 20% of the total capital cost. 20% of the total capital cost with respect to PPP projects. With respect to PPP projects. So that is in brackets just mention 20% by the government. 20% by government, comma, and 20% by the sponsoring authority. It can be a government agency. 20% by the sponsoring authority. So overall it can go up to how much? 40%. Okay. And we have written 20 now. So from the government's pocket straight 20, but overall government funding is 40, up to 40. Okay, so this is for economic projects. Social projects, it can go up to 80. I'm not making you write that. That is there in the slides. Okay, so up to 80 it can go, up to 80. Okay, so then put the headings, next 3, write down. Setting up of infrastructure debt fund companies. Setting up of infrastructure debt fund companies. Write down. RBI and SEBI. RBI and SEBI notified guidelines for setting up of IDFCs, infrastructure debt fund companies, for setting up of IDFCs in the form of NBFCs, and mutual fund companies, Is that okay? Continue. Government has reduced the withholding tax. Government has reduced the withholding tax on interest payments, from 20% to 5%. From 20% to 5%. Continue. Infrastructure debt fund companies are expected to channelize funds from insurance companies, comma, pension funds, and other long-term sources. Production link incentive, that is for overall manufacturing. PLI scheme is for overall manufacturing, so I'm not going to write it here. But still, financing, this is only we are talking about infrastructure financing. Okay, so see here, To handle asset liability mismatch problem, okay, we'll continue writing after some time. So this problem they said we will handle this problem, okay, through a mechanism which is not so popular in India, which is called as takeout financing. They have asked this in prelims. It is takeout financing is related to infrastructure. Some new words like viability gap funding. Okay, so like that you have one more word here which is called as takeout financing. Now what is the meaning of takeout financing is using short-term funds for funding mid-term or long-term projects. Okay, now using short-term. So what is the problem? Asset liability mismatch is because you are putting deposits in the bank for a short-term period and banks have to give loans for long-term period. So there is a mismatch between the asset, that is the loan, and the deposits, that is the liability. So to handle this problem, they said we will use this mechanism called as takeout financing, which is more popular in the developed world. Now what is this takeout financing? We are using this short-term deposits for funding long-term projects. But how does this happen? Suppose SBI is there. SBI has given loan to a company for 20 years. Okay. And remember, SBI is a kind of a SBI is you can call SBI as a financial creditor. SBI as a financial creditor. Financial creditors are those entities which keep some security for giving loans. They don't give loans without security. Simple example is, for example, let's say I am a contractor or I am supplying some food on Vijay Mallya's Kingfisher Airlines. Let's say, suppose suddenly long back, let's say Vijay Mallya, I am running a catering business and Vijay Mallya has given me an offer. He said, for all my airlines, you supply food, you supply biryani. Then I said, okay, fine. It's a big contract. Okay, so immediately you will not say, give me money immediately. No, obviously it's if not you, somebody. So you'll say, okay, fine. And then you started supplying all the flights of Kingfisher. Every month you are waiting for the paycheck. It is not coming. And then you thought it's okay, Vijay Mallya. So maybe next month, maybe a subsequent next month, let him pay. Like this 6 months is over. Okay, I kept on supplying. Now one day news came up. Kingfisher is no more. Okay. Kingfisher is not there. Yes or no? Now Kingfisher Airlines is not there. Now that means last 6 months I was supplying food without taking a single penny, expecting that this great man will pay me money later. That means I have rendered some service based on credit. I have rendered some service based on credit. It's a credit service. 6 months credit. Okay. Now, do I have any security? No. So, I am also a creditor. Bank is also a creditor. But bank is called as a financial creditor because bank keeps something. Bank will say, give me some, put some mortgage or give something as a security for taking this loan. But I don't have any security because I am an operational creditor. Operational creditor for day-to-day operations of Vijay Mallya's Kingfisher Airlines, I have given credit. In fact, it is like that only. I have supplied on credit. Now, generally, operational creditors are not taken seriously in the market. Not taken seriously in India. In fact, financial creditors only, it is difficult. And thinking of operational creditors. So, basically, that means when I use a word financial creditor, it means they are secured creditors. They keep something as security. So, without security, they will not do anything. Operational means no security. No security. Now, SBI has given a loan for a period of, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. Now, there is some asset. Now, this loan is, what is loan for a bank? Loan is nothing but an asset only. Loan is nothing but an asset. Now, this asset, this loan along with the security can be converted into a financial instrument. I am converting it into a paper. I am converting it into a financial instrument. Okay. Now, the loan has some value. Your asset also, the security also some. This is called a securitization of asset. Have this asset has been converted into a financial instrument, a paper. Now this paper does not have any independent value. This paper does not have any independent value. This paper's value is mainly coming from the underlying asset. So in finance, we use a word called derivative. Derivative, what is the meaning of derivative? So derivative is that financial instrument which does not have any value of its own. And that value of that instrument is coming from some other asset. That asset can be gold, that asset can be some mortgaged asset, whatever it is, your land, whatever it is, or it can be some entity. So this is a derivative instrument. Derivative instrument means a paper. Now this paper is nothing but the representation of the loan with the security, securitized. And this paper can be sold in the market. This paper can be sold in the market. Now, let's say Bajaj Finance decided to buy this loan or this financial instrument from SBI. Buy at a particular cost. Bajaj Finance will not buy it if there is no benefit. Okay, so there should be some benefit. So now after 5 years, let's say SBI has sold this instrument to Bajaj Finance. That means SBI has taken the burden of this loan only for a period of 5 years. And after 5 years, it has gone to Bajaj Finance. And now the terms of the loan will also change. The interest, etc. will change. So L&T, when L&T, let's say it has given loan to L&T, so the interest payments, etc. may increase also for L&T. Okay, but after another 5 years, let's say Bajaj Finance has sold this instrument to Punjab National Bank. Okay, like this loan has been converted into a financial instrument which is moving hands or moving from one authority, one entity to another entity. So this mechanism is called as takeout financing. That means SBI was able to bear the burden of the loan only for 5 years. So that problem of asset liability mismatch, where using your short-term funds for funding long-term projects, is to some extent resolved for SBI because SBI has taken the burden only for 5 years. Next 5 years probably Bajaj Finance, another 5 years Punjab National Bank, whatever it is. So this mechanism is called as takeout financing. What is takeout financing? You are using short-term funds for funding mid-term or long-term projects. So for SBI, to some extent, asset liability mismatch problem has been resolved. But for him, probably the terms of the loan may change. The terms of the loan may change. You are paying 5.5% interest, it's not okay, pay 6% for me. So Bajaj Finance will say pay 6. That means the terms of the loan may change. Now this is called as takeout financing. But this is not so popular in India. Not so popular in India. See, even in subprime crisis also, everybody thinks like loan, it was related to home loans only. But loans were also sold in the market. They converted them into financial instruments and then those instruments are sold in the market. Now, but is it a complete solution? Takeout financing, though it may resolve, it is not a complete solution for the problem of asset liability mismatch. Why it is not a solution is, anytime, any business, the risk is initially there. That is, risk is highest in the first 5 years. So when the risk is high, SBI has taken the burden, and when the benefits are coming, the others are enjoying the fruits. Okay, so therefore, it is not a perfect solution, but only a way out. Takeout financing is a way out to solve the problem of asset liability mismatch, where the SBI or the bank will only give loan for a certain period of time, and the loan and the securities are sold in the market to another financial entity. Is that okay? So takeout financing means what? Using short-term funds for funding long-term or mid-term projects. Okay, so that is what is called as takeout financing. And this takeout financing, they said, using this we will solve the problem of asset liability mismatch. Not a complete solution. Huh. Initially itself, there will be a margin that will be given. The loan interest will be between 5 to 6.5. This should be already discussed with L&T. Otherwise, obviously, they will not accept, because it's a long-term loan and you are depending on banks. So you have to initially mention it to L&T. Okay, otherwise it is not possible. No, SBI can't say no, it is only 5%. No, that doesn't happen. The loan cost will change. Is that okay? Now, like this, there is one more word. Of course, they may not ask in the exam, but in the mains we will write. So we'll write takeout financing as a solution for handling the problem of asset liability mismatch. Then you can also write viability gap funding, which was launched by government in 2006 for funding PPP projects. These are the points which you write in mains. Okay, so then comes what is viability gap funding, etc. Okay, then for the banking industry, banking sector, they said, banks said we will come up with credit default swaps. It's a mechanism. Credit default swap. It is like insurance. Credit default swap mechanism is like insurance. What happens in how does insurance company work? You know, insurance companies make profits. How do insurance companies make profits? All of us have taken insurance, health insurance or whatever insurance you take, and everybody is not going to fall ill, or premature deaths are not for everybody. So the companies raise money from the market and then they spend it on few. This is how insurance companies work. Similarly, credit default swap means if there is a credit or a loan, credit means loan, credit that is given by a bank. Okay. For example, SBI has given credit to a company, an infrastructure company called Maitas. Maitas is an infrastructure company of Satyam. Satyam Computers was there earlier. Okay, and there was a problem in Satyam, and one of the reasons for company to fall down is also this infrastructure firm of Satyam called Maitas. It collapsed. Okay, so the reverse you can know, it's reverse. Same. Now this SBI, let's say SBI has given some 1,000 crore loan to Maitas. And based on the profile of Maitas, you will understand that there is a risk associated with this company. Risk. There is risk. That means there is every probability that this fellow may not pay the loan. So each company has a different risk profile. Similarly, Maitas also has a risk profile based on the analysis done by the bank. Now, what is the meaning? There is a credit which is given, and if there is a default with respect to this credit, okay, there should be a swap. Swap means what? Exchange. That should happen. So that is the meaning of what? Credit default swap. It is nothing but insurance given to bank with respect to a particular loan, etc. With respect to a particular loan. Now this 1,000 crore loan, which is a risky loan, and this loan, there is a probability that Maitas may not pay back. Now in the market, let's say there is Tatas, and Tatas are issuing some bonds or financial instruments. Tatas are issuing financial instruments, and these financial instruments are like insurance instruments. Financial instruments or bonds are like insurance instruments. That means when you buy, so SBI decided to buy these instruments from Tatas. And the purpose of this instrument is to mainly cover the risk associated with this loan. Are you able to get this? So for example, SBI purchased these financial instruments to cover 30% of the loan value. 30% of the loan value. Around 300 crores you are trying to hedge. Hedging is what? Avoiding risk. So now when this financial instrument is purchased by SBI, mainly to handle the risk associated with this particular company or a loan, now SBI on a regular basis is going to pay premiums. If you buy insurance, you pay premium, no? P1, P2, P3. You pay premium when you buy. If you buy insurance, what do you pay? You pay premiums. Similarly, for this financial instrument, SBI is going to pay what? Premiums. If there is no default, there is no problem. But if there is a default, there is some problem with respect to this particular loan. If there is a default, then Tatas have to come to the rescue of SBI. Tatas should come to the rescue of SBI means Tatas should come and repurchase these financial instrument. Are you able to get this? So at least some amount of the loan has been recovered. Are you able to get this? See, it runs like, I don't think UPSC will ask, but in mains we have to write. We will write credit default swap mechanism has been strengthened in the banking system to enhance infrastructure financing. Okay, so what is credit default swap? There is a credit given by SBI to this company, and there is a default with respect to this loan. And since there is a default, there is a swap that is happening. Between Tatas and SBI. Now, swap is basically Tatas have come to the rescue, purchased the financial instrument. There is a swap that is happening between Tatas and SBI. So that means an insurance policy is purchased by SBI from Tata, as simple as that. A financial instrument or an insurance policy has been purchased by SBI from Tata. Is this clear? Okay, so credit default swap, credit default swap, credit given by SBI, default with respect to this loan, and therefore there is a swap that has happened between Tata and SBI. Is that okay? Simple. Insurance policy, the way insurance works, it works the same way. Is that okay? Clear? So what was the last thing you've written? Infrastructure? Debt fund companies. Huh? Okay. Next point, just mention rationalization of ECBs. नहीं ना इंश्योरेंस आप कैसे पे करोगे इंश्योरेंस let's say you have taken an insurance policy for 23 years or 40 years, no? So you will pay continuously. Okay, you will be paying it, no? Every year a premium baroge. Suppose let's say health insurance, and it's not that year you will use it. Okay, someday because of some health problem we get admitted in the hospital, then we use it. But premium payment is done on a regular basis. No, this is how insurance companies make money. And that is the reason whenever there is a mass accident or something, insurance companies run away. I think you're getting my point. No, so suppose there's sudden riots or something. Okay, so, and that is the reason we depend on LIC. Though there are so many private companies, no, we feel they are not okay. They may run off to their countries tomorrow, and therefore LIC, Bharosa. That is what we do, no? Why, in spite of there being so many companies, everybody is saying LIC? Is because this is the reason. This is the reason. So what is the business of insurance? See, it's all about collecting money. You may or may not use it. This is how insurance companies, gyms and all they work. No, gym, that fellow will say, no, pay for the 12 months. Hardly we go for 1 month also. Not even 1 month, 1 day, 2 days you go, then you don't go. Now, insurance also, you pay premium regularly. You may or may not use it. Somebody may use it. Are you able to get this? Same logic applies here, but it is with respect to a risky loan, with respect to a risky loan. Now the question comes up, why should Tata come? Because Tata has not sold these instruments only to SBI. Tata would have done it to many. In 8 out of 10, 8 cases, there will not be any default. Maybe in 2 cases only there is a default, where Tata will spend. Only 2 cases. So that is how Tata wants to make. This is an example. Huh? Tata is not doing that. Is that okay? Yes. Understood? No. So very difficult to explain a credit default swap. So this is basically credit default swap. So rationalization of ECB, you have written that? So rationalization of ECB, just write down rationalization of ECB means, see, ECBs are part of current account or capital account? Capital account. Indian rupee is fully convertible with respect to current or capital? Current account. Indian rupee is not fully convertible with respect to capital means what? Indian rupee is not fully convertible with respect to capital account means, it implies what? It implies that there are restrictions even today on those aspects which are part of the capital account. That means there are restrictions on FDI investments, FI investments. There are also restrictions on ECB. That is the meaning. So Indian rupee is not fully convertible with respect to capital account means even today there are restrictions and regulations with respect to capital account. Is that okay? Is that clear? Okay. So liberalizing norms with respect to capital account. Liberalizing norms with respect to capital account or rationalizing means easily allowing ECBs to move into India without much of restrictions. Is that okay? Yes. Clear? The word is clear? Yes. That's all. Then just another point. Rationalization of ECB, that's all. Rationalization of ECB means allowing more ECBs into India with limited restrictions. Just right. Allowing more ECBs into India with limited restrictions. Allowing more ECBs into India with limited restrictions. Is that okay? Next point, introduction of credit default swaps. Introduction of credit default swaps. Introduction of credit default swaps, which will strengthen the banking sector. Which will strengthen the banking sector. Is that okay? Yes. Then, next point, take out financing mechanism. Take out financing. Take out financing. Is that okay? Take out financing, write down. It is a mechanism through which short-term funds are used for funding. Short-term funds are used for funding mid-term or long-term projects. Mid-term or long-term projects. Mid-term or long-term projects. Is that okay? That is what is called as take-out financing. Okay. Okay, next point. National infrastructure pipeline. Write down. National infrastructure pipeline. National infrastructure pipeline. Okay. Just start writing. Just mention, just write down. With an investment of 111 lakh crores, with an investment of 111 lakh crores, for 9,000 projects, government started focusing on infrastructure. Government started focusing on infrastructure with a primary objective of reaching a $5 trillion economy. With a primary objective of reaching a $5 trillion economy by 2025. $5 trillion economy by 2025. Is that okay? Yes? Okay. Next point, write down. NIP is hosted. NIP is hosted in Invest India Grid portal. NIP is hosted in Invest India Grid portal. Invest India Grid portal, which is a centralized portal. Under DPIIT, Department for Promotion of Industry. Under DPIIT, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. DPIIT. Ministry of Commerce. This can be a prelims question actually. Ministry of Commerce. DPIIT. Okay, fine. Is that okay? Done. See, the other day, I think I mentioned like this is a 22nd class, so that means almost like 48%. We are at somewhere like 48 to 50%, not 50, 48%. So I think I've asked you to read one NCRT. So only one NCRT I've asked you to read. That is basically Indian economic development. Okay, and I don't know how many. Have you started? What a smile, yeah. Okay, so it's like, sir, you know how many classes we have, we are so busy, huh? So Indian economic, that should be over. It should be, you should have read at least once, or otherwise start. That should be done. See, after the prelims paper has come up, no. So most of the students are asking or telling like, I don't have hope only. You know, I've seen that paper, I got depressed. Why are you depressed? I don't know. Because first of all, you have never taken the exam earlier. It should be depressed. Who should get depressed? Maybe that fellow has written 4 times. He has gone to 2 interviews and this time he failed in prelim. He should be depressed. We are not at all depressed. We should be happy that we came to know that the question paper can be anything. And second thing is, somebody was asking, is everything luck only? Who told? Who told? What is everything luck? I don't understand this word, everything is luck. Luck is 3%. Luck is only 3%. And in an objective paper, if you say luck, I don't know. I don't know. Because economics teacher knows, so I don't know. Maybe, why? Because those who have read properly have got 80. Those who have read properly have got 80. Now second question, CSAT is made so difficult, can you control UPSC? If you ask UPSC to reduce it from 33 to 23, he will announce the results early. So you have requested UPSC, no, reduce it from 33 to 23, I think something like that, no. So therefore result has been declared, so that please don't ask. You'll make it 23 and straight away he will give you a CAT paper. Then also it's the same. You will not get 23. This is what UPSC is doing actually. So UPSC never wanted to make it qualifying. You force UPSC to make it qualifying, and then it is showing you, I will show you, you will not qualify. Now this is what it is doing. But one thing, those who have sincerely put effort, 100% guarantee. You know what is, see, effort may vary. Somebody can put 5 hours of effort and clear. Somebody has to put 3 hours, maybe because in school you have never studied. Never in our school, especially engineers. Okay, so never we would have studied properly. So therefore now you have to study at least 3 hours more than others. Okay, so that is there. But it's like somebody saying, no, it's all luck, it's all luck. What is luck? There's nothing like luck there. Those who have consistently performed have cleared the prelim this time also. Those who are not clearing since last few years are not clearing. Exceptions are always there. No, somebody may be losing it in CSAT, etc. But if you really decide to put in effort, then there is no luck. I'm telling you, there is no luck. You will find out easy questions out of 100. Now somebody says, no, all the questions are difficult. No. All the questions are difficult. Maybe 60 questions are difficult. Or 70 questions, 30 are easy. First pick those 30. It's all about picking the easy questions. It's not about worrying about the paper. No, you can't change the paper. The paper has changed, you can't change the paper. And now somebody says, no, my background is like we thought like this, CSAT I can't. No. If you work hard, we can qualify CSAT also. We need not get 100 plus in CSAT. Really, if we are putting in effort, it is possible. So there's so much of negativity only. I don't understand so this paper is so difficult, we can't do anything. Nothing like that. Okay, easy questions will be there in every subject. But few things, we can only learn few things. What is the learning? Probably maybe science and technology also we should focus. Environment, if you take it light, then it will give back. Okay, and only if you depend on modern history, you are finished. Okay, so so these are the takeaways. In economics, the takeaway is, don't divide prelims. These are the topics for prelims. I should divide obviously every time. So whatever topics I said mains, questions were there from there. Okay, for example, I said national income is for prelims. No question came. Investment trust, I said it is for mains. Question came from there. Okay, so industry, I said mains. Question came from there. Prelims question came from. But still I'm telling you, those who would have read industry should have that logical analysis like, oh, 15 crore is not there. Now you should observe whether you are able to do that or not. It's not that you should know the number. It's not that only if I read I will mark. Now this is the biggest problem. I will read this and then I will mark. All the questions are coming from notes. That will never happen. Not now. Never happen. It is, yes, most of the conceptual questions will come from notes. But what about the factual questions? But you have read it somewhere, you should be in a position to recall. When can you recall? You read it more number of times, you will recall it better. Number one. Number two, you are not under pressure, you will recall. These are the two things. If you are under pressure, 15 crore, 50. I know one boy called up from last attempt, he called up from the exam hall and he was crying. I asked why. He said, hall ticket number is not there. I said, no, you checked. It is there on the board, the number is not there. Now you can sense his voice. Last attempt is shivering. Now again he comes back and says, I said, go wipe your eyes and check it back. And his number is there in the same class. Now this is something, of course you may not understand. He has gone for 2 interviews, so he is under pressure. But because of that pressure only we will fail. And those people who are आराम से going and writing, say, sir, clear हो गया, क्या करें अभी? क्या करें? Mains के लिए बता दो. क्या बताऊँ? You don't know anything. You don't know anything now. You have cleared mains, you have cleared prelims. I don't know how you cleared. On that day you said, I don't know anything. Now suddenly you clear, and now you have to prepare all ethics, essay, nothing. They have never written essay. Never. Now they're starting optional now. So those who are the most hardworking people are failing because of that. What? So please understand this and don't listen to any negativity. And with one paper, nobody can say the exam pattern has changed. Nothing has changed. Same people will again go to the interview who are continuously going, and there will be some 40% of the people from already those who are in services. That why are they able to clear again and again? Is there any logic? I'll tell you something. Why somebody in service, though is in IPS training, is clearing again? Why? But though he has understood UPSC, and preparation in the first 2 years should reach up to this level. Remember, first 2 years, it should reach this level. First 2 years it can't be here. First 2 years it is here. Put your full. You are here, and from there it is only incremental. 1% here and there you will add on. You are doing training also, you will clear. And second is, success repeats. Failure also same. When you are continuously, see why somebody feels, no, just example, not that IITians are great or doctors are great. Everybody is great only, but generally these people know, they know that if you work hard, you will clear. That is the only benefit they have. They've already put in effort, they became doctors or engineers. Of course, I'm not saying they don't have brains, they have brains. But they have put in effort, I got a result. You have put in effort, you have not got the result. You have not tasted that, the taste of success. So that is the biggest problem. So you don't know, and he knows. So he knows that if I work hard, I may get, because this is history. There is history of success at the back. No, when there is no history of success, what will happen? You will feel, अरे ये तो कर लेगा, मैं नहीं करूँगा. नहीं. UPSC is one such fortunate exam where everybody can fail. Anybody can fail, anybody can make it. So this is, I thought I will talk about this because after that paper came, everybody saying what nothing changed. Your preparation has to change. The only see, you're playing a game. I told this many times. We are playing a game. We play T20, 20 over game. Now this is a 100-question game. An 100-question game, I have to perform on that particular day. If you take it as a game, you perform. While preparation, you do it seriously. On the exam day, it's a game. And see people fail and cry, you enjoy. Everybody is failing and crying. You are crying, I'm not crying. That's all. Finish. This day you are happy, no? Okay, fine. That's all. I know you got the story right now. So, but, and second thing, mains, I've asked you to buy something, like, not buy, I said you'll do old questions or something, this class. These two things. One is that is Indian economic development, and other than that, second. And I thought I'll mention few more. One more book is, which I have read recently, which I felt it good, is 75 years of Indian economy. There's one book, 75 years of, not related to UPSC. It is something written, it is a book written by Sanjay Baru. And if you're reading it in online Kindle also, you can finish it off in 2 days. After 15 days, you will start. And it talks about the state of economy, how India was doing, how India and China were contributing to the world, 50% of world's per capita income. So like in 13th century, 14th century, if you see, India was on the top. They are graphs. And that book will give you introductions for essays and how Indian economy has evolved till date, clearly explained. So after Indian economic development, on a casual note, every day, 2 pages, if you read, it is not for a PGS3, it is for essay. 3 books I felt very useful for essay. One is this, 75 years of Indian economy. Whenever you have time, it's a very good read. You will come across everything that we discussed in class. Capital output ratio, increase, decrease, everything is there. Why Raitwari system is better than Zamindari system? If I ask you that question, is Raitwari better than Zamindari? Why? Ownership of the land. So it is better. Revenue is permanent. So where there is more incentive for investing back into the land, the government has some incentive to invest back into the land in Raitwari. Why? Because more you invest and modernize, more return you get, government gets more money. But in Zamindari, everything is taken by the Zamindar, and there is no incentive for the government to push money back into the field. Like this, there will be some gaps. This is called a gap filling. Okay, so that will be done by reading that book, 75. And for interview, 100% you have to read. I felt it very, you can read. It's all about planning, everything is there. And then there are 2 other books. Of course, these 2 books are not related to economics. One is, there is this book written by Yuval Noah Harari, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. There's this book called 21 Lessons for 21st Century. This man is very talented. Yuval Noah Harari has written 3 books. One is Homo sapiens, Sapiens. And then he wrote Homo Deus. And then he wrote 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. The second book, Homo Deus, and this 21 Lessons for the 21st Century are definitely going to help you to write essays like ship is safe in the, all that. Artificial intelligence, how the world is going to change. So these 2 books are very relevant. Of course, I don't know how many. You will not read. You will have time. No. So whenever you have time, you can read. Is that okay? That's all. So what was the last thing you have written? National Infrastructure Pipeline. Okay. Then put the heading National Monetization Pipeline. Then put the heading National, next one, Government Measures, National Monetization Pipeline. National Monetization Pipeline. I have explained this monetization. Simple way to understand is, government has some assets. Government has some assets like ports, airports, and government gives it on lease to the private player, raises money from those brownfield projects, and that money will be used for greenfield projects. So government said, out of that 111 lakh crore for National Infrastructure Pipeline, 6 lakh crore we will raise it through this methodology of monetization pipeline. Monetization pipeline, 6 lakh crores we will raise. Okay, 6 lakh crores will raise like this. Okay. Now, this is an innovative method to raise money. Innovative method to raise money. So just write 2 lines there. It is based on the principle of, asset creation through monetization. Through monetization. Is that okay? Continue. Government leases out government leases out its public assets. Government leases out its public assets, and through the revenue generated from the existing brownfield projects, government is going to build new greenfield projects. I think it is clear. Okay. Now see, PM Gati Shakti, this PM Gati Shakti model is a scheme related to good governance. So just you have infrastructure pipeline, 111 lakh crores, monetization and all that. Still it can't be successful unless and until there is a proper coordination between different ministries and departments. And in India, the biggest problem is wastage of funds, because you have not coordinated properly. I would have given this example of laying a road. Yes or no? Okay, so then you again dig the road, again you come up with new changes. So this is mainly because you're wasting money because of lack of coordination. So you'll have a central platform under which all these projects are clearly visible and they are implemented under an umbrella guideline. Okay, so you'll have everything centralized. Okay, and this PM Gati Shakti is integrated with National Infrastructure Pipeline, so that National Infrastructure Pipeline will be efficient. Otherwise, 111 lakh crores you're spending on 9,000 projects and you dig the road 100 times for the same project. Okay, then there's huge amount of taxpayers' money that is going to get wasted, and therefore you have PM Gati Shakti. Okay, is that clear? We'll write this after some time. Then the most important aspect is National Logistics Policy. Now this is one big challenge. You have PM Gati Shakti, you have infrastructure pipeline, you also have monetization. But India is very bad in logistics. Now because of this, your cost is going to increase. Your cost of the product. So packaging cost. So anything and everything from the procurement of raw material to the last mile delivery of a product. It includes packaging, transportation, okay, order processing, everything. So all this is going to be part of logistics. Okay, so the biggest challenge in India is our logistic costs are very high. So when it comes to packaging and labeling, transportation, and when you are crossing the state borders, there are issues of taxation, etc. Okay, and we also have a skewed transportation network. Skewed transportation network means we are completely dependent on road transport. 60% is purely road, 60%. Okay, and you know Indian roads are fantastic. Understood? And therefore you can't expect efficiency. And therefore government has to come up with a mechanism. So the basic definition of logistics, it includes all the activities of a supply chain. See, after 1990s, supply chain became predominant. Why? Because you cannot differentiate two products beyond a point. For example, if I ask you what is the difference between an HP laptop and a Dell laptop, you will say वजन ज़्यादा है Dell का. Okay, so it is too heavy to carry. Other than that, can you give me some other differences between? The configuration is same. Now you tell me the difference between HP laptop and a Dell laptop. Very few intelligent IT engineers will tell. Common people don't know. You can watch Amazon in Dell, you can watch it on, everything can be done. So product differentiation beyond a point becomes very difficult. After 1990s, this is what they have understood. Then what becomes important is delivery time, after sales service. After sales service and delivery times, lead times, you have ordered a product, you have to wait. Okay, so all this started becoming important. That is how supply chain started becoming very important. Supply chain, logistics, all this. You will be able to save on your costs and be efficient only if your logistics is efficient. Otherwise, you can't be efficient. Is that clear? So, logistics, when I say, it includes everything from transportation, warehousing, packaging, inventory, okay, order processing and customer service. Everything can be put under a wider perspective of logistics. But government basically defined logistics in a narrow sense. So basically, government's 2017 definition of logistics, government says logistics will mainly focus on three important things. Okay, so government says it is going to focus on one, multi-modal logistic park, cold storage facilities and warehousing. So government's definition of logistics is, its general definition is very clear. It includes everything from raw material procurement to the final delivery, including packaging and transportation. But government's definition of logistics includes one, it includes the multi-modal logistic park, warehouses and cold storage facilities. So when I say multi-modal logistic park, okay, here government says minimum investment into a multi-modal logistic park is 50 crore. Obviously, it can't be less. Why? Because, see, multi-modal means what? You have all the modes of transport being linked. You have the rail, you have the port, you have the air. Okay, so everything at one place. So the goods arrive and from there it can be immediately be distributed. So lead times will be less, delay will be less. You can be more efficient. If that is, efficiency is going to increase through multi-modal logistic park. At one place you have everything. This is how a multi-modal logistic park works. So efficiency. Otherwise, once the material arrives from there to the port, okay, so there is transportation. You don't have warehouses nearby, and because of that, the transportation to the warehouse is a challenge. You don't have warehouses across India, that is a big challenge. Along with that, government also talks about cold storage facilities, especially for perishable items. Perishable items, without cold storage facilities, you can't be efficient. So government's logic of logistics is basically, it focuses on multi-modal logistic park with around 50 crores minimum investment, cold chain 15 and warehouses 25 crore. So this is how government defines logistics. Okay, and government says the biggest problem for India is our cost is around 14 to 18% of GDP, which is far higher than the global benchmark of 8%. Global benchmark is 8% and you're almost double. And if you're almost double, your logistic cost is almost double, then how can you be efficient in the international market? You can never be efficient in the international market, though you're good. Project, national infrastructure pipeline is there, you've started producing, okay, monetization is done, but at the end, while you're delivering the product, your cost is increasing, means you will be inefficient. And that is the reason national logistic policy's primary target is reduce the cost to 8% of GDP by 2030. Very important. Along with those three, logistics also is very important. Otherwise, infrastructure, financing and infrastructure, everything will be a waste. I think it is clear. Okay. Is that okay? I'll give you a break. Just write. What was the last thing you've written? Monetization. So, national logistics policy. National logistic policy. It mainly aims to bring down the cost. It mainly aims to bring down the logistic cost. It mainly aims to bring down the logistic cost to 8% of GDP, to 8% of GDP by 2030. By 2030. Government's logistics policy mainly focuses on multi-modal logistic park, multi-modal logistics park, in bracket 50 crore minimum investment, 50 crore minimum investment, comma, cold chain facilities, 15 crore minimum investment, 15 crore minimum investment, comma, warehouses warehouses, in bracket 25 crore minimum investment. 25 crore minimum investment. Is that okay? Yes. See, later from the slide you can read, not now of course, this is, there is this logistics performance index which is given by World Bank. Nowadays is asking who gives such indexes. So logistics performance index given by World Bank, India's rank is hopeless. Okay, so we are not doing well, that is clearly visible. So our target is at least by 2030 come to top 25. Okay, top 25, be in the top 25, but we are somewhere, see 54, 44. Okay, so we are not doing great with respect to logistics. This is clear. Is that okay? Yes, take a break. Okay, so you have written. Okay. Okay, so the next topic for discussion is PPP or public-private public-private partnership. Okay, so what first question is obviously what is the need for PPP projects? What is the need for a public-private partnership? Okay, so one reason is obviously there is more scope for raising, that is, there is access to new capital, and also technology, access to new capital as well as technology, both, access to new capital plus technology, both. Okay, then increase in efficiency, not only with respect to service delivery, one is the aspect of service delivery, but also with respect to maintenance of asset, also maintenance of asset. So the private player maintains the asset for the life period of the asset, lifetime of the asset. So that is basically called as maintenance of asset. So efficiency with respect to service delivery as well as maintenance of the asset. Okay, and then what else? So mobilization of resources. So this is what it says, mobilization. So mobilization of resources, same, this isn't a different word, mobilization of resources. Mobilization of resources. So mobilization of resources is basically you are able to raise new capital, new finance, all this. Okay. Building world-class infrastructure. Today our airports, if you see, you find that world-class infrastructure, state-of-the-art infrastructure. Okay, and that is because of private participation, no doubt. Private participation. Okay, but what happened is actually, so basically PPP is a contractual agreement between the public sector and the private sector with respect to sharing of risk as well as sharing of returns or revenue. Contractual agreement with respect to sharing of risk and returns, both sharing of risk and returns. Certain projects risk will be higher for the private sector, certain project the risk will be lower for the private sector. The risk, see, many a times whenever there is, for example, there was this KG D6 basin. Of course, it's not a PPP. It's not KG, it's Krishna, Godavari, Dhirubhai Ambani. Now KG D6 basin, now pulling out oil from the oil wells. Now if government would have been capable enough, then government ONGC could have done it. Now why did you call Reliance for getting that job done? Is because maybe government's capacity or government's technology is not sufficient to do it efficiently, and therefore you are calling people like Reliance to pull the oil. And there were several conflicts that took place with respect to this project between the government and the private. Okay. And this was also audited by the Controller and Auditor General, CAG. Heard of CAG? Constitutional body under Article 148. No, CAG, Controller and Auditor General. There was this person called Vinod Rai. Okay, so because of few people, those institutions become very prominent. For example, Election Commission, TN Session, or Vinod Rai when it comes to CAG. So in India, this CAG does something like the post-mortem report. No? After everything is spent, now you are going to check what is done. Similarly, this project also, Reliance was not happy with Vinod Rai's report. He said, this is a private entity, why are you worried about audit? So his logic was very simple. If any rupee that is spent from the consolidated fund of India, we have the authority to audit. And not only has audited, but he has put it in the public domain about Reliance. Okay, and because of that, Reliance was upset. It said, we are a commercial organization and you are defaming us by putting us on the public platform, on the websites, etc. You should not be doing that. It is not correct. Now, what was the problem? Now, whenever a private player is involved, you will have multiple problems that can come. For example, government and private player have signed this contract. Let's say government said, Reliance, we are going to support you. Whatever technology or capital goods or machines you import from outside, we will not going to put any import duties. We will not tax. So you will have the benefit of tax concessions so that you will pull out oil from the oil basin easily. We will support you with respect to tax benefits, and government supported Reliance. But Reliance had to sign a contract saying that after pulling out the oil, you have to sell the oil at a particular price, a predetermined price. You can't sell as you feel like selling. You come up with a predetermined price. But there were several issues and conflicts. For example, Reliance, there's an issue. The CAG was also talking about this. So Reliance was not working at its optimum capacity. What is the meaning of optimum capacity? Now you can pull out 1000 liters of oil, you're only doing 200. Okay, so why? Because you don't want to sell it at a price which you have decided. So tomorrow when the prices increase, you want to pull the oil off and you want to sell it in the market. So you're not using your potential completely. You're not pulling out, you're working at your 100% potential. So you're working at maybe 30% or 40%. But government did not have the scope to go and check whether it is really a technical glitch. So Reliance is technical glitch, we are not able to do. Okay, finish. Technical glitch, and so we are not able to pull out oil. So what can be done now? Now, like this, there were a lot of issues and problems. And then Reliance was talking about inflation. Inflation over a period of time, prices have increased. Why should we sell it at the same price as in the contract after taking the benefits from the government? Now, all these issues have come, and therefore there was a conflict. That means whenever a private player is involved, and that is Reliance, a bigger player, and therefore government was taking a position lower. Real power is with people like Reliance actually. But the companies like Reliance today are stronger than the government. Okay, stronger than the government because they are running the economy. They are running the economy. So government will also say, okay, fine, chalo, chodo. Okay, now this is how it is. Now that means whenever a private player is involved, you can see such conflicts are very common. And why conflicts are common? One is even in PPP. This is not a pure PPP model, of course, which I have talked about. Just to tell you, like this, there will be issues. In PPP, one big challenge is you don't have a regulatory mechanism in place. You don't have a separate regulatory body which will really go and check how PPPs are running. Okay, and several times in India, whenever projects are allotted, there is corruption. Okay, so CVC also, Central Vigilance Commission, CVC also says they only come up with PPP models which are transparent. Don't come up with those PPP models where transparency is less. I'll talk about such models also. There are some models where the transparency is going to be very minimum. So everybody feels that whenever I use the word corruption, everybody feels it is restricted to public sector government. But reality is there is huge corruption in the private sector. When we talk about tendering process or bidding process, etc., if you want to get an order from a particular private company, you need to know whom to tap. You have to tap that fellow, give him money, and then you can get the project. You can get the tip. This is how it runs basically. Whenever you say corruption, everybody feels corruption is with government, corruption is with public sector. That is not the reality. There is corruption, higher corruption in private sector as well. Allotment of contracts, projects, etc. For example, if you are doing a project for a company like TCS, etc., internally there will be corruption, if you know. Okay, so therefore, whenever you don't have a proper regulatory mechanism, there will be always issues. Second is, whenever the stakes are high, conflict will be higher. Stakes are high means, if you are getting very limited, so generally you say, no, I will not be corrupt sitting here, because you don't have any stakes. You are nothing but just an UPSC aspirant today. And therefore you say, I am not like that. But once you are sitting at the top with the signature powers and all, then now the stakes are high. Your real integrity comes down then. So this is what I mean, stakes are high. Stakes are high, conflict is also going to be high. So where the sharing of risk and returns are higher between public and private sector, there will be more conflicts. And most of the time, whenever there is a conflict, it lands up in the court, and Indian judiciary is super fast and judgment comes up after 10 years. Now this is the biggest challenge because money is going to get blocked. Are you able to get this? Okay. Another important problem for the private player. See, private player, actually what happened is after 2012, 11-12, by the time of 2015, the observation was private player was not interested in signing bigger PPP projects. Private player said, big PPP projects we don't want. We will not sign. Why? Because there were multiple issues they could observe. One problem is like, whenever the private player is getting into trouble, the government is not coming and helping. This is also called as Chakravyuha challenge. Chakravyuha is Abhimanya's entry, yes. Exit, no. You enter into the contract, get the project done. That time, IAS officer himself will call you. Hey, vice president of the company. Then you'll feel, oh, I'm vice president, therefore he's calling. No, he's intelligent, therefore he has called you. Now, once the contract is done and you're not earning money, suppose there's a road project done by a private company and there are no toll collections happening. Why toll collections are not happening? Because COVID, nobody is using the road, everybody is sitting at home. Already this private player has raised money from the market, is making losses. Now he is in a position, he wants to move out of the project also, he cannot do it. This is basically called as lack of easy exit. There is lack of easy exit. Lack of easy exit mechanism. Okay, so easily you can't move. Even today, private players are worried about government's regulatory mechanism. This is called as government's regulatory cholesterol. Regulatory mechanism. Now, if you ask me, is it better to be a small businessman or an IAS officer? Now, you love your business, that's a different case. You don't love your business, it is always better to be an IAS or an IPS officer in India rather than running small mom and pop shops. Because the dynamics of business are continuously changing. Most of them know, no, I love what I do, then that is okay, that's okay. You love selling popcorn, then it's okay. But you don't love anything, then obviously it is better to have closer connections with government even today. There is no doubt about, there is no second thought. I'm from management background, you ask me, I know about the private sector also. There is no other thought. Why? Because India, even now, regulation, even now the bigger players are always worried about government. Big shots, Big shots are also worried about government. Suddenly government says, now give away your assets. They are worried tomorrow what will happen if you're not giving up. So this is how India runs. Even today, regulation is very high in India. So that is what, according to foreign economists, Indian economists are saying, yes, India has improved a lot, no doubt. But still, regulation, yes, this is regulatory cholesterol. The regulation is high on the other side. Of course, I made a statement, small business. Okay, it's a big one, that's a different thing. So, yes. Okay, now, so Chakravyuha challenge, lack of easy exit mechanism, entry is there. Government regulatory cholesterol, that is too much of regulation, okay. And conflict resolution issues of conflict resolution, okay. So you don't have a separate body which will resolve the conflicts. So most of the PPP projects are landing up in courts. And always PPP may not be feasible for a smaller project. For example, you constructed a road in a semi-urban rural area. In a rural area, private fellow, now rural areas of UP, I have seen few. And now you want to collect tax. That fellow will say, wait, I'll go under the... Okay, so don't ask tax. As simple as that. Or I will go above the road. But don't, that means PPP will not be feasible in some of the places where it can't be economical for the private player. It can't be economical for the private player. You don't expect that user charges you can levy on the public. Very difficult. He will say, I will not pay. Then what are you going to do? So that means feasibility of PPP is difficult for smaller projects. Smaller projects, or if you are doing some projects for BPL families. Some projects, because PPP always increases the cost. For example, metros in Chennai, a metro in Hyderabad, now they are not as successful as Delhi metro. Delhi metro is one of, see in Delhi, there is of course nothing but metro. Of course, that's my feeling. Many of you like it. I don't deny that fact. The other things also, but when I get down the flight itself, this is Delhi. Okay, so but still metro is there for you. But in other places, why was metro not such a big hit? Is because directly you decided on what? PPP. PPP means it will increase the cost. You're giving service, but for the common man, if you increase the cost, it's going to become a challenge. Common man cannot afford. Okay, so this is also one big challenge for PPP. So smaller projects, not viable, increase in cost means you're moving away from the common man. Over a period of time, everything is marketization. Everything in this globe is part of market economy. There is no escape. No, somebody says, I will escape from market economy. So there was one essay also, self-help or self-improvement or something like spirituality also kind of thing. Okay, that is also outsourced. Apps, no. You're using apps for meditation today. Okay, and self-improvement and self-empowerment, everything you have to pay money. Demand and supply, part of demand and supply. No course is free, including Sadhguru's course. So this is, now the problem in a country like India is excessive marketization of basic services. Basic services can be education, healthcare. So you want to use PPP for basic healthcare. You want to use PPP for primary basic education system. No, it is not possible because cost is going to shoot up. Marketization of services. So all this will take away the services away from the poor man. Take away services away from the poor man. So because of this, there are challenges. But of course, if you want to focus on world-class infrastructure, PPP is the way out. Public-private partnership. Till here, I think we'll write some intro and then we'll continue. Is this clear? Just write down. Put the heading public-private partnership. Public-private partnership. Write down. Government typically has yeah, this is the topic. The process of self-discovery has now been technologically outsourced. This was this. Of course, not related to economics, but fantastic. So write down. Government typically has several objectives to perform. several objectives to perform. Like infrastructure development, comma, welfare mechanism, comma, getting good value for money, comma, timely delivery of services, comma, meeting public needs, and so on. Continue, full stop and continue. PPPs have shown their potential. As an important tool to meet these objectives, and address infrastructure shortages. Continue. These projects provide new sources of capital. For public infrastructure development, by shifting the responsibility for arranging the finances to the private sector. Okay, arranging the finances to the private sector. Next paragraph. PPP refers to a contractual agreement between a government agency and a private sector entity that allows for greater private participation in public infrastructure projects. Okay, so let's try to understand different types of PPP. And these models are generally for existing. Of course, you can use it for new also, but these are mainly for existing projects. Okay, so here I am taking risk on x-axis and return on y-axis. Okay, so risk and return. Okay, so here I've put private sector and public sector, and here public sector and then private. Okay, now as we are moving up the ladder, we will find that the risk taken by the private sector is increasing and the returns also for the private sector is also increasing. Okay, and one of the most basic form of PPP is the management or the service contract. Management or service contract. Okay, and then we have turnkey projects. Okay, and then we have something like the lease contracts, lease, or we use the word called affirmage, lease or affirmage. Okay, and then we have concessions. Okay, so different types of concessions are there, like area concessions or BOT. Okay, and then we have PFI, private finance initiative. Private finance initiative. Okay, so this is something like different types of PPP models. Okay, so when you are moving up this ladder, you will find that private player is taking more risk. So we'll observe private player takes more risk from this area. So from concessions, private player will invest more, spend more, he will design, he will build, risk. Similarly, returns also for the private player should be higher. Okay, now we will go step by step. Okay, now the first one is what? Management or service contract. So this is basically a PPP, a basic format of PPP. In this basic format of PPP, you are only calling the private player for rendering a particular service or manage a particular project. So here everything is under the control of government only. For example, let's say there is a port, government port, and it is becoming difficult for the government to handle the container traffic in the port, container traffic. Okay, and therefore you are calling the private player to start a new port terminal, and the private player will manage that port terminal. He will only manage it. Okay, so the ownership of the port remains with whom? Government. Okay, and who has constructed the port? Government. Okay, and you are only calling the private player for managing the excess container traffic. You are asking him to come up with a new port terminal to handle excess container traffic, for which government is going to pay him a fixed amount of fees. You are saying we'll pay you so much of money for rendering this particular service or contract. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, so another example you can see management or service contract, another example for that. Okay, so here management contract. So what happens in this management contract is, if you see the asset ownership, this is about the asset ownership. Asset ownership is with the government. Okay, and the contract period is always going to be short term. Short term is generally for 3 to 5 years. Okay, so private player is not going to make any capital investment. He is not going to spend money on designing, building the project, etc. He is not going to finance it. Everything is done by government only, the public sector only. Private player's role is very limited there. Okay, what is the private player mainly doing? He will management of the aspects of the operations and maintenance. Maybe it can be a port or it can be something else. Okay, so simple logic here. It involves contracting to the private sector most or all of the operations and maintenance of a public facility or service. All or a specific operation, you are giving it to the private player. Although the ultimate obligation of service delivery will be on whom? Government only. Government, if something goes wrong, who will be questioned? Government will be questioned. Private player is only called for rendering that service, manage. But ultimately, the responsibility of service delivery will be with the government. Okay, so these are there in India across all sectors because it's very common, and the risk is very limited in this. Risk is limited because they will not fight. Why? Because private player is not investing, the scope of fighting is not there. Fixed amount of fees is given, generally performance based, and therefore conflict is very minimum here. For example, Karnataka Urban Water Supply and Improvement Project. So for this water supply, you are calling the private player. The project is developed by the government, Karnataka Government. The project is maintained, everything is done by the government. You are calling the private player to render that service. If the service delivery is going to be affected, who will be questioned? Karnataka government will be questioned. Are you able to get this? So here the role of the private player is only with respect to rendering a service or managing a particular project. That's all. Okay. Or for example, performance based maintenance contracts in highways. The private player is not building the road. The highway has been built, but a contract is given to the private player. Now you do one thing, you maintain this. Okay. So you are maintaining it, maintaining the road or the highways, for which some payment, performance based payment is given to the private player. So he has not invested money on the road, and therefore there is nothing like toll collections which the private player will do. Here a fixed amount of fees is given, you maintain the road or port terminal, whatever it is. This is called as the management contract. Now what are the positives? Positives is very simple, conflicts are less. Okay, and it is, since it's for a short term period, it is commonly followed across. It's not a new model, it's a commonly followed model. What is the negative? In such projects you can't expect innovation. How can private player innovate? There's nothing like innovation here. It is only about delivering a particular service or managing a particular project. That's all. So there is no scope for innovation in such projects. Conflict is less, scope for. So return is also less for the private player and risk is also less for the private player. This is called as the basic management or service contract. Is this clear? Yes. So just write management or service contract. It's a contractual, write down. It's a contractual agreement. It's a contractual agreement for the management of part, or whole public enterprise. Part or whole public enterprise. For example, a specialized port terminal for container handling by the private sector. Continue. Next point. A management contract allows private sector skills to be brought into service delivery. However, the public sector retains the ownership. Of the facility. Continue. Private contractor is paid a fee. To manage and operate. And the payment is generally performance based. Usually the contract period is short term. In bracket 3 to 5 years, close the bracket. Okay, then write some advantages. First one, less risk due to shorter duration. Less risk due to shorter duration. Two, least number of conflicts. Least number of conflicts. Least number of conflicts. Then write disadvantages. One disadvantage only. Almost all risk is taken up. Almost all risk is taken up by the public sector. All risk is taken up by the public sector. Is that okay? Two, one more point there. Less incentive for the private player. Less incentive for the private player to invest. Less incentive for the private player to invest. Is that okay? Yes. Now, next one is, see, another important project, you should be knowing this. Turnkey management projects, turnkey contracts you call it as. Turnkey management project or turnkey contracts. So, it is a common method of allotting projects through bidding. For example, let's try to understand with an example only, simple example. So, what do you mean by a turnkey project? For example, let's say, now Vision IAS has taken this building. Now, you want to build this classrooms, okay, and you call a private player, somebody, and you will say, we want a classroom which should look like a classroom, okay, and you come up with all the modern infrastructure, whatever you want to put, you come up with this, the LEDs, LCDs, and you come up with the ACs, you come up with the interior designing, or come up with a digital board, you want to bring the carpenter, okay, so there should be everything in place, the podium, everything. Now for this, we are going to pay you something like X amount. Now it is your headache to bring electrician, you want to bring the interior designer, you want to bring, the digital board person or the ACs and everything. So that's a kind of a turnkey project given to a private player and he is going to get it done. Similarly, let's say remove Vision IAS there and put government. So there is a government project, okay, and you are calling the private player and you want to select a private player for a particular contract. So how do you select a private player for a particular contract? Obviously, it will be through a bidding. So the lowest bid generally will be awarded the contract. Unless and until it is very prestigious project where I will check the history of the contractor also. Here only there will be some aspect of corruption, etc. Okay, so this turnkey mechanism generally will be used with other PPP models. Other PPP models, you use this turnkey mechanism where it's a very old method of allotting projects to the private player where you follow a concept of bidding. So the lowest bidder is generally awarded the contract, as simple as that. Now when I talk about lease, what is the meaning of lease? You are giving your existing property, you have an existing property, you leased it out to somebody. So it can be either government leasing out its existing asset to the private player, or it can be a private player leasing it out to the government. For example, simple way to understand is, in the railway station, okay, so the railways, Indian Railways is leasing out retail outlets to the private player. Indian Railways is leasing out retail outlets to the private player. So now the private player is going to run his shop and he is going to pay a fixed amount of rent to the government. So here it's a very simple example to understand where the Indian Railways has leased out some retail outlets to the private player, a basic way to understand. So in a lease, basically, the private player is going to collect money from the customers who are using his service and he will pay a fixed amount of rent or fee to the government. This is what is happening in leasing. There can be certain circumstances where you just don't pay rent alone, but you also have to share your profits. You have to share your profits means what? From the money which you are making, it is not about a fixed amount of rent, but you also have to share a fixed amount of profit with the government. So this is basically called as affirmage. The basic difference between affirmage and lease In leasing, you are only paying a fixed amount of rent. In affirmage, along with the rent, there will also be an aspect of sharing of profits. So this this concept of lease is generally used in existing projects, but at times, if it is used with other PPP projects, for example, if there is a PPP project called as build, lease and transfer, okay, build, lease and transfer. Earlier, government and private player used to use this. For example, what is the meaning of build, lease and transfer? Now here, here let's say the private player has built the facility. He has constructed the facility and then he has leased it to the government. Okay, for example, in Indian Railways, there was a broad gauge, narrow gauge, or you call it as gauge conversion projects. So earlier this gauge conversion projects, basically private player used to build it, then lease it to the government, government will run the facility and pay some money to the private player. Now the private player also has to recover the capital cost. He has spent money on constructing that. Okay, he has to recover the capital cost and then the particular project is completely transferred to the government. So unless and until you are using it with some other project, it is going to be a simple project for existing projects. That's all. Otherwise, you can use it with other PPP projects like the BLT, build, lease and transfer. Just an example. Now I'll just show you. Okay, I think it is clear. There should not be any confusion here. See here. Suppose a lease contract, just a small basic lease contract. So ownership here basically, so lease contract, asset is leased either by public entity to the private partner or the reverse, vice versa. So here lease contracts, ownership is with the public entity. Medium term, generally leasing is done 10 to 15 years. What is the private player doing here? Managing and maintaining it. So here it's an existing project. So investment and all is not done by the private sector. Already that is there. Okay. So now example, leasing of retail outlets at the railway stations by the Indian Railway. Basic format of leasing. No, but this can become a little more complicated when you are using this leasing for new projects also. New projects also leasing can be used with other projects. For example, build, lease and transfer. Okay, so build, lease and transfer, I have written something like greenfield. Greenfield means it's a new project, let's say. So greenfield here, the ownership now in this case, the private player has constructed something, he has built it. So, and that means the ownership for initially is with the private player and he has leased it to the government for a medium term period of 10 to 15 years. That means the capital expenditure, this capex, capital expenditure is done by the private player. Who has done this capital expenditure? Who has spent money? The private player. So it involves building a facility, leasing it to the government and transferring the facility after the recovery of the investment. So primarily taken up for railway projects such as gauge conversion in India in the past with limited success, not so successful. So gauge conversion and all, the private player used to do it, then lease it to the government, and government used to make some fixed amount of payment until the investment is recovered and then the ownership is transferred back to the government. So this is using lease concepts for with other projects, little more complicated like the build, lease and transfer. So this build, lease, transfer can be done by the government also. That means government can construct a facility and then lease it to the private player. Either ways it can operate. So one is private fellow is constructing it, giving it to the government, or it can be government constructing it and leasing it to the private player. Okay, is that clear? And the basic difference between affirmage and lease is, in lease you only pay the fixed amount of money. In affirmage you have to share the revenues. You have to share the revenues with the authority, contracting authority, not just the rent you are paying. Is that okay? So write down turnkey. 2. Turnkey management project. Turnkey management project. Write down. It is a traditional public sector procurement. It is a traditional public sector procurement model. Traditional public sector procurement model for infrastructure facilities. for infrastructure facilities. Okay, continue. Full stop and continue. Generally, a private player is selected. Generally, a private player is selected through a bidding process. Through a bidding process. Continue. Private player designs and builds a facility. Private player designs and builds a facility. For a fixed fee. For a fixed fee, which is one of the criteria, in selecting the winning bid. The scale of investment by the private player, is generally low, and for a short term period. Okay. Then 3, affirmage/lease. AFF. Affirmage/lease. Is that okay? Write down. Yes. Affirmage/lease. Write down. In this category of arrangement, the leaseholder is responsible. For operating and maintaining. The infrastructure facility. That already exists. We'll stop and continue. Generally, the operator does not require. To make any large investments. Except for the case where this model is implemented with another PPP model. Example, build lease transfer. The difference between affirmage and lease is technical. Under the lease, the operator retains the revenue collected The operator retains the revenue collected from the customer and makes a specified lease payment to the contracting authority. Under an affirmage, the operator and the contracting authority share the revenue. Operator and the contracting authority share the revenue. Is that okay? Fine. See, next one is basically, from here you observe that the private player will invest more, okay, and also there will be more conflicts, more scope for innovation, etc. So this is basically, there is a word here called concessions. Okay, so one is the private player can ask the government for some rights, concession rights. So you give me some rights for rendering a particular service or whatever it is. Similarly, the government may feel this private player is required here. So government may pay some fixed payments to the private player, asking the private player to render a particular project or take up a particular project. So that means in concession agreements, the payment can happen both ways. Both ways is, one, government can pay the private player, asking the private player to deliver a service. Consistently government may pay. Or the private player, he himself will say, give me some concession rights, maybe to supply something in a particular area. Okay, and I will do that business and give me some, he will buy the rights from the government. Either ways, it can happen. Better to understand with an example. One such example is, there are some concessions which are called as area concessions. Area. What is the meaning of area concessions? In a particular location or area, complete rights are given to the private player. For example. Okay, so let's say there is water distribution concession rights are there. Water distribution in an urban city, there is water distribution concession rights have to be given to a private player. Now what is the government going to do? The ownership will remain with the government, but the private player is going to design it, finance it, construct it, manage it, and also maintain it. That means the private player, so let's say in a particular area, government has given concession rights to a private player to distribute water in a particular city. Just an example. That means you have given area concessions of distribution of water in a particular urban city. Now, it is a long-term project for 20 to 30 years. This is called as the concession period. That means this concession agreement between the government and the private player is valid for a period of 20 to 30 years. During that period of concession, during that period of the contract, the ownership of the asset will remain with the government only. But who is going to make the complete capital expenditure? It is done by the private player. This is the difference between the management contract and concession. In the management contract, everything is done by the government only. You are calling the private player to render a service or to manage. But here, the project is designed by the private player, financed by the private player, constructed, managed and maintained by the private sector. Okay, everything. That means the capital expenditure is completely done by the private sector. During the concession period, the private player is going to work for a fees here. Will he work for a fixed amount of fees? No. He will not work for a fixed amount of fees. Why? Because he has spent so much of money. So obviously he says, I will collect revenue from the customers. For this water distribution, I will collect revenue from the customer. Okay. And if you want something, I will share a little with you. But everything has to be given to whom? Private player. That means in this case, the private player has taken higher risk because he has spent money, designed it, constructed it, and therefore he will also expect higher returns. That means user charges are generally collected by the private player only. Private player only will collect the user charges. You're using it, you pay it to me. Then what is the role of government in this case? Government has turned out to become only a facilitator. So government will feel, since it is related to water, government may say quality has to be maintained, number one. Number two, don't increase your charges beyond the upper limit. So this is the upper limit. So beyond that, don't increase it. But up to that limit, it is the discretion of the private player only. Otherwise, he is spending so much of money. If you tell him now you only keep the price at this level, he will not listen. So you can only tell him that this is the upper limit, okay, beyond which don't increase the price, and I want this desired quality. And everything else is done by whom? The private player. This is called as area concessions. So that is the reason we have written concessions at the top, where private sectors risk is high, returns are also higher for the private sector, because he himself is spending money on all the capital expenditure is done by the private sector, and he has to recover the cost. He has to recover the cost along with the profits, no? He has to recover all this investment along with the profits. Similarly, there are concession projects like the BOT. What is BOT? Build, operate and transfer. So most of the airports which we see are running on this principle of BOT. So there are some greenfield airports and there are some brownfield airports. So what I mean by greenfield is you are building that airport from scratch. Let's say GMR is building an airport from scratch. Now the parking fees, the toll collections, the road leading to the airport, everything is done by this private company. Because the private player has invested hell a lot of money in constructing that world-class infrastructure. So before construction of the airport itself, the rights are sold by the private player to McDonald's or Subway. They will also do auctioning also. They will do auctioning also. It's not that, no, how is, so that's, why is there a Subway or a McDonald's or a Creamstone, etc. These shops have been established in the airports. So the private player makes hell a lot of money on that. That space has been already sold to them, or it is given lease to them, and there will be some contracting that happens. So this is how the private player makes up for his money which he has spent. Are you able to get this? So that means the private player has built it, he has designed it, built it, spent money. Then during the concession period, let's say 20 years, the private player is operating the airport. He's operating it, he's collecting the revenues, everything. And during the period, the ownership, though it remains with the government, all the operations and maintenance are done by the private sector. And after that period of 20-25 years, okay, then the facility may be handed over to the government for the operations part. Is this clear? So these are what concessions where the private sector participation is more, and innovation is also there. The airports, if you see, world-class infrastructure today. So all that innovation is happening because of participation of private player. But at the same time, you can observe the increase in costs. This is the biggest challenge. You can't say, no, railways also will come up with PPP completely, no. So take a decision, no, all the railway operations will come up with PPP. Now that is one of the cheapest mode of transportation. So government cannot take that decision immediately with respect to railway operations, obviously. Now somebody was commenting, see Japan, when this rail accident happened recently, Coromandel Express. Now next day newspapers will find, see Japan in 1964. Bullet train. What are we doing in India? You have seen that news? Okay, so bullet train technology in Japan. Now, why is it that there are so many rail accidents in India? Now, everybody started discussing, and then they said it's a conflict between political parties. Then they said it is wantedly done, and then that it's not an accident. We are more into this rather than resolving the issue. Okay, so now when it comes to technology, now you want to build world-class infrastructure in a very short span of time. Government does not have the resources nor the technology. You have to bring in a private player. You have to bring in a private player, and then you can come up with, very, very difficult, it's not so easy. See if there is, and when it comes to contracts, for example, you heard of Sridharan, Metro Man. Now today, any metro project, if Sridharan is going to sit, Any private investor will be ready to invest. That is the power of what? Integrity. That is the power of everybody knows that he will not eat, and everybody knows he is efficient, and everybody knows you can't influence him. It is very clear. So one man made a difference. Able to get this? No, one man. So somebody says no. So ethics doesn't work in today's society. It works. This is how it works when it comes to Delhi Metro. Okay, this is not the same in all other metros. Not the same. A person makes a difference. A person makes a difference. Costing wise, it is cheapest. And from the beginning, the way you do the contracting part, okay, the cost changes. Okay, you know what is contracting? No. So there are several things you subcontract. So when you subcontract, everything is based on pricing only. Pricing. So pricing means corruption. Getting it right. Okay. So of course, this is not an ethics class. I'm not interested in that. Okay. Yes, Vande Bharat. It's there in our slides. No, ownership. See, generally in concessions, most of the concession projects, ownership remains with the government during the concession period. Ownership remains with the government. Ownership is not given to the private. In most of the concession project, ownership remains. Okay, so everybody is getting relaxed. Okay, so till here is this clear? Concessions, put the heading concessions. Write down. In this form of PPP, government grants specific rights to a private player. Government grants specific rights to a private player to build and operate a facility. To build and operate a facility. Build and operate a facility for a fixed period of time. Fixed period of time. Continue. In concessions, payments can take place both ways. Payments can take place both ways. That is, the private player pays for concession rights. The private player pays for concession rights. And the government pays the private player. And the government pays the private player for providing certain services. For providing certain services. Usually such payments by government may be necessary for making projects commercially viable. For making projects commercially viable. Okay. Then write one example. Area concessions. Area concessions. area concession. One example. It can be BOT also. This is one basic area concession. Just write down. The private sector is responsible. Write down. Area concession. The private sector is responsible for the full delivery of services. For the full delivery of services in a specified area, including operations, comma, maintenance, comma, construction and rehabilitation of the system. Construction and rehabilitation of the system. Okay, continue. In these projects, the private player designs, builds, operates, finances the project, although the ownership is still retained by the government, during the concession period. Is that okay? That's all. Thank you.